Bushman, and we have David Johnson here.
Oh,
Hi, everybody. So today I'm going to ask you, Dave, about this comes up. This comes up with people in the community. Folks that we both read on. We do similar work. We do different kind of work. But folks ask about how is it that you can regress somebody back to a lifetime, but somebody else can also be regressed back to that
mhm.
to a lifetime. I mean, why is that? How does that work? In
Well, it's such an interesting topic. So certain people who did past life regression, so Dolores Cannon has had one type of experience. So she, I think, never really had anyone like she never removed an entity, right? So some people do have sort of spirit stuff that kind of sticks on them. She never had that experience. But people who learned from her after that did have that experience of sort of removal. So I believe that different people doing different methods actually are like working on different aspects of this. So there are different answers to that question. My feeling, and I'd be interested to see what your guides tell you, is that when you regress somebody back, for example, maybe two people have the experience of Cleopatra. And one other aside, I'll note that I believe Dr. Newton, who does past life regressions, he never had this happen. He never had people regress back to famous people, not once. I have had it happen occasionally, and I think there's a couple of reasons. I think that a soul out there in the universe, maybe that soul is, collective souls, sort of breaks apart and becomes, let's say, a human being. And so that collective group of people, one portion winds up being the Queen of Hawaii, right? And once it goes back to source, I think that is more than one soul's experience, perhaps. The other opinion, and this is more Dr. Weiss's opinion, that not everybody was actually the Queen of Hawaii. Some of them were just, the Queen of Hawaii's best friend or assistant. They were kind of in the same group and understanding the same story. That's another opinion. The third opinion is sometimes I have a feeling that I've repressed somebody back to the Akashic records, and they're not necessarily reading their life specifically. It's like they're going and they're reading a book about a life that makes a big difference to them, right? A life that transforms them. It's almost like some people believe, this is again more Dolores Cannon, that this is a buffer of information that you sort of go out into the universe. And in order for you to live a life on this planet, you read the story of Noah, and that helps you move forward. So there really are three different opinions. I know that in your case, you did one lifetime where it felt a little bit more detached. And then yeah, you did the one that where you were like King James,
Was that who that
and you
was?
were,
Yeah.
yeah, you were much more detached. You didn't think that that was as real. That feels more like you were reading the Akashic records, right? Whereas the Queen of Hawaii one, that one you were singing in Hawaii, and there was just no
And
question.
talking.
Like, how'd you know that? Whoa.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I wasn't, believe me, I was not studying Hawaiian when I was bartending in Hawaii when I lived there.
mhm, mhm.
That was not on my radar
No.
at that time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, what's your opinion about this?
Well, so I went in and I asked and I got a whole big meditation
Oh
on
yeah.
it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, like a whole bunch of epiphanies. So, like I talked about before, we plop out of the light, right? And we're a bunch of tennis balls in a ring. And this is our soul family. We go off, we do our work between levels 6 and 15. When we hit 15, we reunite and we become a collective consciousness.
Hmm.
And so I'm going to regress. I've had the experience where, I've brought folks through, you in mediumship, you talk to crossed over folks. And then I find out, but they've reincarnated. And it's like, okay, so I asked, how is that possible? What is that? Right? And then it got into being an interdimensional reader, channeler, different dimensions. We live in many dimensions at one time. We are not just here. That, then I was flown out into the universe, the frequency, how we are all frequency, our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings. But then it went out and out and out, and all beings, the whole universe, it is light. And I know this is cliche, I know that it could be stitched on, it could be needlepoint on pillows, but we are all one. We are all tied, and that universal love that flows through us.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked, well, if I'm able to bring in like Jimi Hendrix and talk to Jimi Hendrix as a child who's alive here now, he's incarnated now, plays the guitar, he's not going to do drugs. How is that possible? And it's possible because when we are incarnated, because we are all tied, because when we incarnate into this lifetime, we usually incarnate with our soul family, that ring of souls. Imagine those tennis balls. They're showing up. Some balls are here, some balls are not. But we are recalling each other's lives. We live each other's lives. But also, we are one with everything in the universe, even our soul family that we weren't born with. But that's why some regressions are so vivid and specific. And that's how it can be possible that like these two things exist at the same time. I hope I'm explaining it clearly what I saw. But I was pretty like, whoa, I was blown away. I was overwhelmed. I was not really understanding all that I was seeing. But that's kind of the gist of it, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
When you regressed me back and I was Queen Lily Okoani, I mean, I still remember vividly when you brought me back down from the cloud and I was floating down onto that wet grass outside the palace, and I could feel the moisture on my feet. My feet were brown. I was wearing a white muumuu. I mean, I was there. And what is so fascinating, when I was a kid, we went to Hawaii. That was my first plane ride. And I was like 4 years old, or 5. I was in kindergarten. And when I got off the plane, I will never forget this. It was one of those moments where, because was the type of plane where you land and you get off on the tarmac and you have to walk to the terminal. And when I stepped down, I was like in this whole world of colors, pinks and blues and purples and yellow. And I floated away. And then it was like everything receded and I could see Hawaii as it used to be, like probably during that time. And so all these things are coming back to me since we did that regression. And so that lifetime was really significant. Like I was there. I mean, I was singing in Hawaiian. I was eating the food. I was tasting the food. I was smelling it. It was my life. When you regress me back to King James and he was that disaffected artist who didn't really want to be there, I didn't feel that connection.
It's like it had valuable information in it for you. I could see that's purpose, but you weren't quite as engaged. It was a little bit more like you were just reading somebody's story and repeating it back to me for the values that were in it.
Right. And so I think it is, I think I was in the Akash in that.
Yeah.
And I think I was really in her. I was in the
Hmm.
memory of her in that
Hmm.
time and space. So is
Yeah.
that interdimensional channeling,
Hmm.
or was I really her?
Good question.
Good
Yeah.
question. We should check
I,
more
I,
on that.
yeah, yeah. I often feel, I feel like you're integrate, you were so much in there that you were her. I don't see how else you could sing in Hawaiian. I don't see how else you could. One thing that I find very interesting about this work is the incredible details that people will get, like the color of the muumuu, the description of the palace and the way that things were there.
And
And I'll
smells.
be like
Yeah.
regressing people and they'll tell me how to shoe a horse in the 16th century. It's just like, how they would not know how to do that, or they'll tell me the details of, the linen and how this linen is like the most expensive. And then these people don't know anything about linen. They're just like, regular people. They're just, will tell you really interesting details. It's like a history class
Yeah.
about these anthropology, about how they've done certain things. A lot
Yeah.
of details.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fascinating.
Fascinating. So very interesting,
Mhm.
spirit, why we are here, studying it, looking at it, learning about it, because we're brain wiped. We're not supposed to remember all this stuff. And a lot of
Mhm.
us are
Mhm.
remembering. I mean, there's a time and a place and what your mission is and when you will remember. But
Mhm.
when we first get here, it's like we are brain wiped in order to be in the third dimension, to experience
Right.
emotion, feel the feelings that we have, to go
Mhm.
through that, because that's how we rise and ascend. So
Yeah.
very
One other question
interesting. Yes.
I wanted to ask you about, which was starseed readings, because I know you do them, and we mentioned them before, but I'm wondering if you could just do a little mini starseed reading for me.
You, sir, are a Pleiadian, and you were born in the 10th dimension. You were born on Alcyon. It's the mother planet, the mother planet of Pleiades, essentially the mother star. There's the seven sisters. Alcyon is the big one. Interesting thing about Pleiades is that each planet, each star where there is life, um, is its own consciousness. And uh, so everyone coming together makes up a collective conscious. Like
Hmm.
here on Earth, we are in the third dimension. We have this very specific purpose. We do not have others, beings come and visit us from other dimensions, but humans are in the third.
Hmm.
So the way it works on Pleiades is everyone is of a dimension comes together. But on Alcyon, it can be 10, 11, and 12 are all together. You were born the 10th dimension. Now, your dimensional self, it's not, it's just a placeholder on the number line. Because we live
Hmm.
in the third dimension, we're in a linear experience. We see things as the past, present, future. We see things 0 to 1 and -1. We're kind of, we rate things on a scale. So whatever dimension you are born in is just a placeholder. It doesn't mean that you are a more advanced or a lesser advanced. I was born in the sixth dimension. It's just there's certain traits. But
Hmm.
the last lifetime that you had, you were back on Alcyon. You've gone to other places I've seen, and you've done interesting things. A lot of engineering, um, piloting.
Hmm.
You have been a farmer in one place that I saw. But this last one that you were in was on Alcyon,
Hmm.
12th
What is
dimension. You
what
were
is pilot?
like a healer. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, what is piloting?
Oh, like flying beings around.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I interrupted you.
It's okay. Um, so it's very cool because you were a very high revered person. You were in government, but you also had the spiritual position. You were a
Hmm.
leader, and you were one that was a main reporter, and you still do this, David. That's why I was so blown away and couldn't really find my words there for a second, because you still do this in reporting to the council. A lot of
Hmm.
folks, so you hear about the the Federation of White Light, the Galactic Council. There's many names for it, but it's essentially a group of beings that oversee the consciousness of the universe. And they're
Hmm.
all over in the multiverse. But in our area, think of us as a district, with Arcturus and Pleiades,
Hmm.
Sirius, Andromeda, we make up this space and time in the universe. It's like a district. So there's a council that oversees the consciousness, because the third dimension is a very unruly bunch. It's
Mm.
the third dimension is where we pollute the universe, we pollute our
Mhm.
environment, we kill ourselves out, we can kill each other. It's because we
Mhm.
have emotion, we have judgment. So you, yeah, you were in government, like a spiritual leader.
Mhm.
Um, and then, it's a little personal why you are back here, and it gets into soul contract stuff. So I'll share that with you
Privately.
in
Okay, sounds
private.
good.
But
Thanks for that.
it's fascinating. It totally aligns with who you are and what you are doing here now.
Mhm. Good
It's
one.
very
All right.
cool. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
I
thanks
hope
so
that
much.
was a little snippet.
That was a perfect snippet. I'm really fascinated on it. It helps us see what you do.
Cool. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It was good to see
Thanks for
you.
watching, everyone.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
No.